Let's go, let's go, let's go. Down to Junior's farm where I want to lay low. Low life, high life, oh, let's go. Take me down to Junior's farm. Take me down, Jimmy. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, fresh off the campaign trail where we're stumping on the...
Who are we stumping for right now?
I don't know who we're stumping for.
It's funny you bring that up because
Yeah?
I was going to bring the legislature up. In the,
Oh, boy.
We'll talk more about it.
I'm not stumping for anybody on
Yeah,
the legislature
I'm not.
at this point.
Never thought I'd be wanting Lyndon Carlson back for whatever is representing 45A in the legislature.
There's a lot less crying, and policies are still the same. I don't know.
Maybe. I might know the answer to that one,
Really?
but I might not. What was it again?
What was it?
Yeah, what sing it again?
Let's go, let's go.
Oh,
let's
I know
go,
that.
Let's go.
I know that.
Yeah?
That's Richie Valens.
No, that's a different song.
Well, that's
Let's
go.
go,
though, right?
pretty baby. Do, 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 do. No,
No,
that's
not
that
how
one.
it goes.
I had the La Bamba cassette when I was a kid.
Yeah, that's not it. Not Let's Go.
No.
That's not Richie Valens.
No, that's not it.
But he still sings that, right?
He does sing that,
Okay, well,
but
then
he doesn't sing this.
Well, then I'm gonna. Then I think that's the right answer.
Oh boy.
Okay, then I don't know. I thought I was right. I thought that was Richie Valens.
If you believe it, it must be true, huh? That's
a different show.
That's a different show. On this one, you're just wrong.
Well, you correct me all the time on this show.
It's because you don't let me speak on the other one. No. All right.
I took your mute button off once last week.
That's the nice thing about being the producer. I get to control that. But being as your show, it would be awful quiet if I muted you. So.
Truer words have not been spoken.
Yes.
All right. Who the hell is it? Then?
Junior's Farm by Paul McCartney. EPs. I'll post both of them up at the Music from the Podcast
A
Spotify
2 for
playlist.
one.
Look at that.
2 for 1.
Look at that. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to
Jay,
get agricultural on you today.
We are in a minute.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what.
But you city dwellers, this isn't just for farmers. You better pay attention.
No, I mean, look, I think that there's a misconception about how much farming affects everything in our economy.
Yes. Ever gone to the grocery store and paid a whole bunch more lately?
Yeah. Or seen prices of certain products go up and down. It's not by, I hate to say it's manipulated, but I think it's manipulated more than it's ever been before.
Absolutely.
But Jay, I'll tell you what. You want to talk about getting hot under the girdle?
Yeah.
Sure.
Last time I checked, you still pay taxes to this state as well. Yeah.
Bastards.
So.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry. This is kind of like it's like it's so bad what you can only laugh at it or something like that.
Yeah.
First off, let me just ask this question. When I see a picture of Walls and Gazelka and Melissa Horrible, which one's Larry, Daryl, and Daryl? That's what I want to know. Okay. But first off, let me just say this.
Yes.
Here's why you gotta love Republicans sometimes. You just once in a while you just have to laugh at. I'm getting some of this here from Yahoo, but this was a Star Tribune article because I won't pay them. I have to get it from a different site, and occasionally Yahoo peddles what they say. Minnesota legislature agrees to $1 billion in tax cuts. Now, Jay, stop right there.
Yes.
It's amazing the definition of what a tax cut is nowadays. Now, call me crazy, but I'm just going to speculate here. We'll just make the math easy.
Okay.
If you made it in taxes, a tax cut would be like if you started paying like $150.
Yeah. That would be a $50 tax cut.
That's tax cut.
That's
okay?
pretty simple math.
I want you to listen to how the state legislature defines $1 billion in tax cuts.
Okay.
The final agreement, first off, it's $1 billion over 4 years, focusing on businesses that received payroll loans from the federal government, who borrowed the money from the Chinese, and workers who collected unemployment. Now, stop.
Yeah, let me make a correction on that first. They did not borrow it from the Chinese. They borrowed it from the Fed. The Chinese aren't even paying for that anymore.
Yeah, true, but who knows who will buy the bonds in
The Fed will. We're in trouble. Yes. Go ahead.
Okay, so to stop and think for a minute.
Yes.
Tax cuts to businesses that received payroll loans and workers who received unemployment. What's wrong with that paragraph?
So
Remember how we just explained a tax cut?
right. So you're taking something that the government has given you and
Add
from the
something.
government.
What about the rest? It's for preserving historic buildings and film production in Minnesota.
Well, that means I can get back to work, right?
Film production in Minnesota? What's that? Hey, don't go to California. Come to Minnesota where the weather's worse and the taxes are just a little bit smaller.
Hey,
go
you
from
could
the
never
highest to the third highest.
You can never film something like the Mighty Ducks in California. Well, maybe you could now. I mean, I suppose
Well, you got a hockey arena,
everything could be indoors.
Yeah, I
you
mean,
can do that, fake snow and all that. But
also, they are pumping $20 million into local governments to help prevent student homelessness.
What?
They count that as a tax cut. It's right here in the article.
yeah, how's that a tax cut?
Notably, of course, here's where you got the Republicans, because the Republicans will sacrifice anything for signing their little pledges that they won't raise tax. Although spending's gone up 130% in the last 20 years, somehow taxes have never gone up.
Right.
According to Republicans, which is a total lie. But of course, that's their big victory for Senate Republicans. Your favorite senator, Carla Nelson.
Oh, boy, yes.
This is a great bill. We started from very different places. Minnesotans are still recovering from the economic fallout of the pandemic, and it would have been really disastrous to tax them.
I'm waiting for one thing that she's ever done to be conservative.
Well, but let me explain something.
Yes.
So the large income, and keep in mind, these people have already done their taxes. They now have to go back and amend them.
Right.
I mean, so that has been something that should have been passed, could have been passed a year and a half ago.
Yep.
Okay, so now that's the biggest, they're calling that a tax cut. So the governor shuts down businesses illegally and unconstitutionally.
Yep.
Then the federal government, the state of Minnesota, not going to tax.
No. Meanwhile, our taxes, at the worst, stay the same if they don't go up.
Well, but I mean, look.
Guys like you and I that worked all the way through the pandemic.
Well, and keep in mind what local and county governments have been doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the idea that tax rates have it in. I mean, do you want to ever sign any kind of pledge saying I'm never going to do anything? You never know what proposals are going to come or something. I have my own ideas on how I'd like a tax system to be. For example, I would like to not tax people's income.
Absolutely.
Now, if we become more of a state that relies on what you'd call a consumption tax, I'm open to what that consumption tax should be and what it should be on. But if you say, well, no new taxes, you first off, you miss a chance to negotiate something.
Right.
Like, why don't Republicans start with, why isn't there a start to every like the Democrats start every single thing with tax increase on the wealthy. They always say that. They never pass it, but they always say that.
Right.
Why don't the Republicans start the negotiation with no taxes at all?
Yeah.
There's where we start the negotiating. But the Democrats are good at that. They throw garbage in bills.
Yep.
Knowing it's not going to pass, then they negotiate it out of there.
Yeah, and so the Republicans call it a victory because they, instead of taking 10 steps toward communism, they only took 4 steps toward communism. And never do they take a step away from communism.
No, we're just dying a slower death.
Yes.
My favorite comment, though, from this article, Paul Marquardt, who is a representative, I don't know where he's from. I think he's from like the Moorhead area, but I could be wrong.
I'll get on it. I'll find out. I've heard the name.
Okay. It has probably my favorite quote. talking about the people who are going to get tax cuts. There are folks and kinds of issues we don't talk about normally in tax committees. People with no income and no home. Can I ask a question? If you have no income, how do I cut your taxes?
Yeah.
How do I cut zero?
I know.
That's like saying I was bowling and I hit no pins, and on the next one I hit fewer.
But it's worse than that, Andrew, because these people not only pay no taxes, they get some. What are they going to get? Even more tax returns? And you used to get $1,200 back for not paying any taxes. Now you're going to get $2,500 back. Maybe that's the way.
We used to call it welfare. That's what we used to call that.
Yes. Paul Marquardt is from the District 4B.
It's up in the Northwest somewhere.
Becker, Clay, and Norman counties in the northwestern part of the state.
Okay.
So
I thought it was more. I don't know what county that's in.
Yeah, it's somewhere over there.
Clay County, is that after Henry Clay?
Could be.
Okay.
That'd be,
I mean, and by the way, the police reform, we have to touch. Oh, and I'll tell you something else too.
Yeah.
This is from the same lady who reports from the Star Tribune. I can't pronounce. Oh boy, Brianna. I'm not even going to try the last name. Biersbach.
Whatever.
Something like that. Biersbach.
Biersbach.
Said Senator.
I wanted my beers back. Yes.
The clean car emission thing that we talked about a few months ago.
Yes.
Apparently will go through the Republican Senate.
Oh, idiots.
Part of a deal on the, quote, environmental budget.
Oh.
Yep. So
is there anything you won't pass? No. What's the difference?
Well, and I'm confused on what they've agreed to on. This is pretty serious, though, because there's very little details about this police reform stuff. There's civil asset forfeiture reforms in here, though nobody knows what they are. There's regulations of no-knock warrants, which funding for community violence prevention, blah, blah, blah. Fines and fees reform, which is kind of strange because that's really not a state issue. I don't see how that is a purview of the state government. Murdered force for missing and murdered African American women.
So Indigenous women get a task force that out there that is what your Democrat-led government thinks.
Well, and I also like to throw this out here. Funding increases for public defenders and legal aid. Well, that's really not funded at a state level.
No.
If you look at the counties are the ones who handle most of that. Mm-hmm. So is that another unfunded mandate pushed on the counties? I mean, it probably will be. But I mean, this is
which means they're raising property taxes.
This is or whatever other taxes that they have.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Hennepin County or whoever is probably going to want to. And quite frankly, this one isn't their fault. I mean, a lot of other things are, but
absolutely.
But and also this is a governor and an attorney general who have undermined county attorneys by snatching cases from them.
Yep.
And so on. So this is something to keep. I mean, I'm sure over the next month or two we'll dissect all this, but a pretty brutal ending to just an incompetent legislature. I mean, I'll tell you what.
And Wall still has his emergency powers. I'd just like to, in case you haven't thought about that in a while, with the masks off and all that. Yeah, he still has them.
And keep in mind, he has already said that he will not give them up until there's an agreement on the evictions and foreclosure moratorium.
We had an agreement back in 1792.
Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Basically what he's doing is he's threatening the legislature, saying, I'm going to keep emergency powers till you do what I want.
Yep.
So then you basically have them if that's, I mean, and again, if the House and the Senate will not
you just
rein him in.
The Senate
will. I mean, they will cave.
Yeah.
They will cave. And Gazelka went out and loved up the police reform bill, claiming that they won because the police weren't defunded, when the truth is it's only local governments and sheriff's offices that can defund the police. The state can't.
That's true.
And I mean, this is why I elect a sheriff. This is why we have city councils and mayors to oversee these departments. I mean, who's going? Like I said, who's going to pay for all this? Who's going to pay for all this touchy-feely class that these police officers have to go through? It's just going to be another. It's going to be another feel-good thing where the burden for the garbage is going to fall on cities and counties to do all the work. And so it's just a disaster. Just a disastrous
Absolutely.
session.
And I'm going to make a quick point here. Point of privilege. Oh boy, really? Yeah, I'll use my white privilege to take 2 minutes on my own show and say something.
Frickin' honky.
Mr. Marquardt, maybe I shouldn't say Mr. Maybe I should say Representative
Mr.
Marquardt. Guess what his background is?
Oh, I'd say either education or
former lawyers.
Oh, yeah.
But in
I thought
Minnesota,
that was too obvious.
But in Minnesota, they could be a lawyer or they might be from education. You are correct. He actually went to school.
Education?
He earned a BA in journalism.
I'd have guessed a BS. I guess he had a BS.
He did. Oh, he got a BS in social studies education. And then he earned his MS in education administration. So, yeah.
Oh, God.
And has been a teacher in the Dilworth, Glendon, Felton school districts.
Okay, Dilworth, that's close enough to Moorhead, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. And here's something to prove our point. What we say on here every bloomin' week. Marquardt was a member of the Dilworth City Council from 1988 to 1989 and the city's mayor from 1990 to 2000.
Yeah, once again, the farm team brought up another guy.
Yep. Well, it's what we tell you guys every week. Get on a city council. Get on a school board. And
start on a planning commission.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's how you grow into these roles. And that's why when we elect people that don't do what we say, it's because, as voters, it's because they have and oftentimes bypassed the system or we don't have enough people primary phase.
But I mean, that's the danger part. They don't have a resume. They don't have a track record. You're just going off. And once they're entrenched, I mean, then the party's always behind them, except maybe Mort. But I mean, for the most part,
yeah,
it's difficult when you're in there.
Right.
And it's really hard for the party to do it. I mean, the party won't do it. Only the voters in a primary will. But
right.
The party won't. The party won't come down and do something like that. So, I mean, it's bad. It's just oogly. I tell you what, I'd almost rather have, here's the thing. And here's what else. I just want to say one more thing that I hate.
Okay.
Is how the employees of government and how the people who use state parks and all that, because I'm a big fan of our state parks, are used as pawns in this. Do you know that letters went out and emails went out to people who had reservations at state parks over the July 4th weekend, warning them of a shutdown and basically urging them to call legislatures and the state and the DNR sent out and the governor's office sent out emails and stuff to people basically threatening. I mean, state parks we can't agree on. I mean, come on. What, are you going to shut them down so you can go have a little pissing contest for another 2 weeks?
How about we shut down the legislature?
Yeah, I mean, crepe. It's just seriously.
How about we shut down the Met Council? How about
exactly.
we shut down the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency?
But you get rid of road construction for a freaking
highway.
Yeah.
At a time.
Well, I mean, they're all racist. We got to change them. Remember we
true.
learned that last week?
Yeah, we did.
All right. Well, to be continued. Unfortunately, folks, we're going to give you a little warning here that over the next couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll dissect all the bull stuff in those bills. And by the way, another thing, too, I should mention, there were like 15, I believe they've all passed now. I mean, the 30th is tomorrow, right? I think they're all through. So, and the police accountability, the police bill passed the House today. I think it's projected to pass the Senate tomorrow. So it's going to become law starting July 1st. So,
idiots.
So how do you love that?
Yeah.
They pass something, and then it becomes law the next day.
It's nice how you elect a Republican Senate to hold a legislature in check and make sure certain things don't get through, and everything gets through. And they make excuses up and down about how, oh, well, this is a win for us. No, it's not. You want to...
I'm just laughing. You keep saying us. You say us, not me.
Yeah.
I ain't a part of that.
What do you mean? Really?
I am done going to my own podcast, Jay. It's like being gay and coming out of the closet. I don't have to do this anymore.
Wait, you came out of the closet?
No, I'm still in the closet. But point is that, I mean, here's the thing. I laugh at it now. I laugh at the people who rah, 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 team blue, team red. I did that long enough and I won't do it anymore.
I'm definitely not on a team. I don't wear a team. We got on the table until we put some different pieces on the table.
Yeah,
and the ones
who
who say that they agree with the way that we see the world really don't. They don't. At least they don't stand for anything. Did you see my text I sent you? It was a few weeks ago. I'm going to have to find that again. It was a picture of a...
Yeah, it was those naked playing cards.
It was a picture of a frozen chicken. It was called a spatchcock chicken, or as I would have called it, a congressional Republican chicken, because it had the backbone removed.
Oh,
did you get that? Yes, that's it right there. We might have to put that up for everybody to see.
A wet pretzel.
Yes. Backbone removed.
Well,
yes.
I mean,
glad you still have that.
So what does that mean for Gazelka running for governor? You're going to shine up that bald head and you're gonna be wearing his shirts next week?
No. If he's our best hope.
I'll tell you who's in the lead right now. It's not even close. It's Scott Johnson. It's far and away in the lead right now.
Wow.
I mean, he's not. He's anybody else. Alternative to him is going to know where it goes. Okay, I'll tell you where it goes. Into Tim Walz' re-election. That's where it goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Enough with that. That's almost worse than anything I can think of. But Jay, we brought up farming.
Yes.
In the what was the song again? Let's go.
Junior's
let's go.
Farm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Richie Valens. Okay.
Paul McCartney. Yes.
Yeah. Same thing. And I am astonished in just scratching the surface on this issue because there's a lot of small towns, a lot of farmland in Minnesota, a lot of small, you want to call them farming towns or whatever you want to say. They're actually are farms in the Twin Cities. I mean, people be surprised how much farmland there is in some areas in the cities and just outside. And I am astonished. I know that the family farm is kind of a thing of the past in this country. I think it's sad that that's true.
Yeah.
But the consequences of what I call corporate farming,
Yes.
okay, are becoming very, very dire. And they're like you and I have talked. There is call it a conspiracy, call it what you want to call it. There is a plan to basically end rural America.
Yeah.
They don't call it that, but that will be the end game. Mm-hmm. That we're all herded into cities. A couple of landlords own, or the government owns everything else. I mean, we are headed in that direction. And we are headed there much, much faster than I've realized.
Well, by 2030, they say they want to get rid of all private ownership. And that would be of land or anything else.
Well, I don't think that's going to happen.
Well,
but
not by 2030, I hope. That is what they're pushing for with the Great Reset. That and a big thing, as we've seen as part of the Green New Deal, but also part of the Great Reset, is to greatly reduce or eliminate the eating of meat.
Yeah,
and so by controlling these farms, they will be able to do that.
You sit there and you say, well, how could that happen? I mean, it actually can happen very much easier than you think.
Mm-hmm.
Because our farmland is in the hands of so few people.
Yes.
I mean, it is just amazing. It's amazing to think that my great-grandfather for Lake Minnesota, 1899, he was born. I can't remember what year he died. It was in the 80s, though. I remember him. And he died, it was 86, 87. I mean, he was pretty old. My great-grandmother actually lived to be 100. And just to think, he owned, or his family, and it was before him, too. But 87 years he lived on this one piece of property.
Yeah.
Okay. And you think about how much farming and agriculture have been the backbone of this nation.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not only on life support. I'm going to argue by 2030, that is gone. Now, you might say, well, how does that happen? I mean, give me a break. It's QAnon BS or whatever. But if you see the trends that are going on in farming right now, and and the biggest reason we want to do this show is how it's going to affect everybody, from prices to what we eat to how this is being manipulated to how small towns can be wiped out. I mean, it can happen if the family farm is completely wiped out. It's happening, number one, through farm subsidies. Jay, the farm subsidies in this nation are crazy. They're absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
And they're completely not going to where it was intended to go. Not that I ever would have supported it. Back in the 1930s, I probably wouldn't have. Maybe on a temporary basis, but not on a permanent one. Where farm subsidies are not going to small farmers. They're getting eaten by all these mega corporations and holding companies. Companies that somebody creates, as a tax shelter or as, another type of place to hide assets.
Mm-hmm.
Your favorite guy, your favorite eugenicist.
Yes, he is.
Now,
Wyoming, it's all out that way, right?
No, there's some in the Midwest, too.
Okay.
It's nuts. I mean, it's crazy. I can't remember.
I wonder if he's ever been to Wyoming or he just bought it on site and
well,
has people
in the
working
Seattle
it for
area
him.
where
He's definitely not milking cows, I'll tell you that. You'd see him underneath a cow with a bucket.
Oh, goodness gracious. I don't think you could pound a nail. I've got the Washington, California, Idaho, Wyoming, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico, Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, North Carolina, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Arkansas. That sounds like more than 18. So, yeah, he owns those states.
Wow.
And what he's doing on this land. Now, you might say, well, what's the big deal? That's capitalism. He's made his money. What's the big deal? Well, let me tell you what the big deal is. His major thing he's doing is called seed science. You know what that is?
No. Sounds lovely.
And biofuel development, which Gates says are the major reasons for these acquisitions.
So instead of growing food, he's growing things to put in our gas tank.
Well, again, he has to grow food to get the subsidies.
Right.
So he is growing something there. But again, you take away a family farm growing however many acres of corn, and you do that in a bunch of states and blah, 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 you are producing less corn, which drives up the cost of it. But he gets subsidy for doing that. Remember, the subsidy works where you're stabilizing the farm and you're artificially raising prices. Subsidy anyway,
right?
But you're driving up the cost again. Well, this clown does whatever, uses horse farts or whatever to try to run a paddy wagon.
Right.
Okay, so and in fact, if you look at some of the largest farm ownership ownerships in this country. Ted Turner is the largest landowner, not necessarily farm owner, but he owns several ranches and a few other things in 3 different states. He is the largest landowner.
Wow.
Nebraska is one.
Ted Turner's a big eugenicist. Did you know that?
He's another one.
Yeah.
New Mexico, he owns the most land, and I'm trying to find the other state, but 3 different states, he's the largest landowner, which is weird. I mean, it's just kind of strange. The largest in Minnesota is this Malpus Woodlands Group. In fact, they're also the largest landowner in Mississippi, which is weird. And here's the other thing, too. Who says they can't turn this land into something different?
Yeah.
What if they want to turn it into low-income housing or condos or what's stopped by local zoning laws are the only thing, but we all know those are under attack too.
Yeah, in Biden's infrastructure bill, they wanted to get rid of all zoning laws as far as for the.
You wonder how New Mexico is run, and this country is run by the federal government, which I think a lot of people aren't aware of either.
Right. Yeah, federal government owns a ton of land. Most of Nevada.
Most of New Mexico as well. I bet between Turner and
South Dakota is the other one.
South Dakota, okay.
Yeah.
Another farmers who are leasing land, that there's like a big landlord and you become like the serf, on this land. You don't really own it. And I don't know that you own all the equipment. I don't know who takes the depreciation and things like that off of it.
Right.
Or who exactly gets the subsidies. But at some point this system, farm subsidies were never intended for, Bill Gates to hide paying taxes. I mean, that wasn't why they were created. And if you go back to the AAA back in the 1930s, and again, it's not really legislation I would agree with.
Right.
But the thought process, again, it's the consequences of growing the size of government. You've got stuff for 90 years ago that some of it's left unchanged really since then. And we've handed out billions upon billions of dollars in subsidies. I mean, this is money from the government. This is not coming off your AGI. This is not a deduction.
Right.
Okay, you're being paid to do this.
Yeah.
So, I mean, who owns America's farmland? Actually, census.gov, believe it or not, actually shows that 44% of farm owners don't farm. They rent it out. Which is interesting. They've got some charts and graphs and stuff at census.com. Show all that. The print's a little too small.
No, I mean, that's what it said. There's a total of 3 million owners, and 44% of them don't farm, only rent their land to others. 50% do farm all their land, and there's 6% who both farm and rent their land to others.
So, but you can see where the trend's going. I mean, 50 years ago, that was probably 90-10,
Right.
So are we going to get to a point where everybody's just a serf?
Well, maybe. And that's the thing. That's what's interesting. I mean, 50 years ago, there were lots of family farms. People weren't selling to developers.
Yeah.
That same website, the most land acquired from someone not a relative. So 6% was inheritance or a gift. Okay, so that is 43%. 6% is other. 51% is purchased from non-relative. So farmers are selling land like never before.
Yeah, but I mean, part of it may be they're afraid to get drowned out in 10 years. they see the trends and they're like, look, I'm going to get out while I can.
Right.
Or they're being offered ridiculous amounts of money, knowing that a guy like Bill Gates or Ted Turner can take a short-term loss, because they can bleed it off on 10 other companies
Right.
that they own, and they can drown out. And now, I mean, this is not good. And you want to say, well, how can Americans stop eating meat? How can we, how can this happen? Well, if all this farmland is in the hands of a handful of people, the handful of people can control everything we eat.
Yeah, and when you look at right now, there are 4 major meat packing producers in the country.
Yeah, there's I think there's a handful of regional ones too, but I think you're right. I don't know. I can't think of them off the top of my head.
One is Smithfield. I'm trying to remember what the other ones are, but I know China owns one or eight. One of them also has a huge share in the ownership of these veggie-based non-meat burger type things. I don't know if it's Impossible meatless products or what it is, but
the old seaweed burger or whatever.
Yeah.
Wasn't Cargill one of them? Cargill's.
Oh, they might have been.
They might be the largest non-corporate one.
Okay.
Because they're still a private company. They're not. They're not on.
Does Cargill do meat, or is they more?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Tyson Foods, could they be one? Yeah.
Tyson's one of them, yes.
That's not Mike Tyson.
No, it's not.
Well, there's a few others. Cisco, I believe.
Yes, they are. Austin, Minnesota.
Yeah, Purdue, that's another. They're big into chicken.
Yes, I believe Purdue's one.
I'm sure the Koch brothers own something. They've got to. Who does the meat at the Twins now? Sheboygan, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they're that big. Hormel used to. I don't know why they don't anymore. But
yes,
they're. I don't think they're American though.
Yeah, I don't know. They have places in.
They do, but I don't think they were. I don't think they started.
That might be one of the Chinese one. I'd have to look at that, but.
So again, if a couple of, so let's just say all these big companies decide, we're not going to produce real meat anymore.
Yeah,
we're going to produce, a seaweed burger or a broccoli burger or all the stuff you like, Jay. The asparagus, asparagus with
Yuck.
second generation cheese on the side or whatever. I don't know. I mean, what's to stop? Who's going to stop them? I mean, and they're going to do it with your tax dollars. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. So, what happens to all these local farmers? What happens to those the township? My bigger fear is that there's certain things are just going to stop growing. Whether they call it climate change, whether they say Americans are too fat, we can't have this.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Gates is big into climate stuff.
I think some of it's just going to be making it less available,
No, which drives up the price. I mean, remember that always drives up the price. And then they're going to be subsidized. They're going to be paid to do it.
Yep.
And soybeans, I mean, they're in everything too.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they'll make those more unavailable. I don't know if those are quite as good for you as some other things.
True, but I think it's going to be hard for them to do it as long as the demand is there. Right. But what they're going to do is they're going to do it slowly over time. This is the thing. Yeah. They're not going to cut meat off tomorrow, but they can work towards doing that in 25 years.
Right.
I mean, that's how we've done complete streets and all the other stuff we complain about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you think about that. You think about driving up, either driving up the price or cutting down the supply or, just not making something anymore and in the hands of so few people.
Yeah.
Now, again, you might say, well, that's capitalism. Well, it really isn't.
No.
It is not capitalism to stand there and pay billions. Here's what I'm shocked at. What I'm shocked at is the same people who talk about, corporate welfare and taxing the wealthy. They never go after farm subsidies.
Right.
Where's the C here? And all these rich guys who sit here and talk about, they're the biggest welfare recipients anywhere.
Yeah.
They don't believe in capitalism. They believe in creating their own little empire.
No, and that's the thing. I mean, with what family farms are left, you would have those types of people going after the family farms, but the corporate farms, they will do whatever the government tells them to do. And here's the other issue, why it's not just free market, because when you have 4 meat packagers, the price controls.
I want to know who owns those. Who owns stock in them?
Yeah.
Talk about a
You've got price controls in place,
yes,
because, you're no longer, having to fight against the little guy or this,
all decide
with face, because the people and they can crowd out the little guy. So these 4 big conglomerates get together and make the rules so that no small farmers can come up through the ranks and give them a run for their money.
Right. It's like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and whoever's sitting down saying, okay, how do we jack up the salaries so the other teams can't compete with us? I mean, it's just no different. And I think they do that. Again, you can call me whatever you want to, but I believe that they do talk to each other. I believe they all know what each other is doing.
Absolutely.
And they certainly watch each other.
They have a gentleman's agreement.
They do. There's a I mean, why do you think if they were really in competition with each other, they would be the big time innovators on this kind of, they don't innovate squat.
Oh, no.
Bill Gates hasn't invented anything new since the early 80s when he started mediocre software. Okay? He doesn't do any of that. Yeah. He's a guy who buys stuff and lets other people do his crap while he writes it off on his taxes. Okay? He creates a foundation where he puts his family, gives them all huge salaries, and so on and so forth. They're not, Turner and Gates would be going after each other like McDonald's and Burger King, but they don't.
Right.
They know it's best if the control is in the hands of just a few people and they can somehow manipulate that.
Yes.
Best. Kind of like the mob saying, okay, you take the South Side and let's just agree to control our little territories here.
Yeah. Which is what happened.
I mean, that's what they're doing. But you see this in all these industries.
Right.
You see where oligopolies are coming up and there's no other choices anymore.
Right.
I mean, think about it. Think of what industry. Think of an industry that does not have 2, 3, or 4 monster companies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head and I can't. Whether that's retail, grocery stores, construction stuff, home goods, gas stations. I mean, I'm trying to think of something that doesn't have a few monsters.
Try throwing a rock and not CVS.
CVS or whatever, a Quick Trip or what. I mean, it's just, it's not easy. And I think that, it's particularly dangerous when you talk about feeding people.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about manipulating what we eat. And you talk about, like we said, the death of the backbone of this country, which is rural America. It is not New York. It is not L.A. It is not, some armpit like that. That is not the backbone of this nation. It is the independent family farmer.
Mm-hmm.
That is not getting money from the government. They are producing a product that is high in demand, and they are working their own land. They're not working for anybody else. They're not punching a time clock with their 1946 pickup truck.
Yeah.
Okay, they are the backbone of the nation, and they are a dying breed. I'm going to tell you something. Rural America will die with them. Rural America, as we know it, is already on its deathbed, and it's going to go out in the next 20 or 30 years unless these big guys are broken up. What happened to breaking up big companies here? Well, I mean, everything is too big to fail now.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever happened to, somebody getting, there was a time where if you go back in American history and the railroads got too big or, Carnegie Steel or Rockefeller Oil, they were broken up.
Yeah.
Now it's buy up whatever you feel like.
Absolutely.
And again, I'm not a big government guy, but a monopoly or an oligopoly is always bad. It is unnatural.
Yep.
And in our government's policies have partly caused this.
Yeah. I mean, really, they've allowed companies to do things in such a manner that it stifles competition. It really erases a free market because you have one or two people that control everything. And
I just like to know where's the squad?
Yeah.
Okay, where are they?
They don't care.
Yeah, of course they don't care.
They don't care.
And you know what? These guys are great at politics. One of the things they're underrated at is politics.
Mm-hmm.
They're great at playing both sides.
Yeah.
They're great at giving everybody some money. They're great. They know when to support a certain cause, who to cut the checks to. What
Right.
foundation to give the money to so that they're safe.
Right.
They're good at playing that game. They're better at it than the politicians are. And as a result, they never get. Look, there was a time where big business.
We're separate.
Absolutely not. They wouldn't even think of it. You weren't going to get J.P. Morgan to run for governor of something. Absolutely no way.
No.
Now, big business and big government work hand in hand.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'd like to know what kind of biofuels do we have with Bill Gates stinking up these lands with?
Yeah.
I mean, what the hell is that?
I mean, is it ethanol? Is he trying to create something new? Is he just sitting on it?
Like it's his idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there is that.
I mean, let's get real here.
But for those of you who are cynical, and say, they're not going to stop, making food. We need food. I mean, they're not going to stop doing it. Back in the Great Depression, I mean, Andrew, why don't you feel our list? The government told people.
Yeah, I mean, that's simple. And it's subsidy. That had other acts after that. Basically, it's part of the NRA, the National Recovery Administration, which basically was the first time government and business really did go into bed together. The federal government in particular. Yes. And it was, okay, how do we fix, quote unquote, the farm problem? And I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to look it up. I'm paraphrasing what happened. Basically, people were told what to grow, not grow. In some cases, they were paid not to grow.
Right.
Because that artificially kept the price high.
Mm-hmm.
You might think that makes no sense, but the whole point of it, and again, one could argue under a temporary basis during the Depression or during the Dust Bowl. After World War II, this was necessary. I don't think it should have gone this far, but after World War II, I don't know, we destroyed abroad, you lose food. And again, because it was like, okay, grow and grow and grow, we'll pay you. Well, after a few years of that, we couldn't do it.
Right.
So it was sort of, yes, there were X amount of crops that were basically deemed too big to fail. I mean, if you're going to put it in modern terms, it's too big to fail. Tobacco was one of them.
Yes.
Because the tobacco industry in some states was one or two. North Carolina back then was, I think tobacco was their biggest product they exported.
Yep.
Wheat was another big one, like in Kansas. I think they were the top wheat producer at that time. And of course, corn in Iowa, Nebraska, and a few other states. Trying to think of, there was a few more, but so they were, they were deemed too big to fail, and we've been subsidizing them for 88 years now. And those laws have changed a little bit and have been expanded a little bit. But largely after World War II, when big grocery chains came in, that was when the corporate farming took over. Because now things were mass produced and you could get the government to cover part of the cost. So that's when the big grocery store chains started happening. It took a while, but I mean, and you look at it now, there's Walmart, Cub, and what else is there?
Right.
Coburn's on a smaller level. Target's gotten into the grocery business, but even if they just suck at it, they sell so much else that they're copying Walmart is what they're doing. And really that's it. And there used to be a lot of grocers but again, they've been squeezed out because a large farmer, if they want to, can deal with just one grocery chain.
Right.
And that's the same thing. The trucking industry feeds off that too. There was a time, my father, for example, when he drove an 18-wheeler, Rainbow Foods was their big account. When Rainbow Foods went under, their plant shut down. Now there's not no demand for trucking out there.
Right.
But the trucking companies said you only exclusively deal with us. Mm-hmm. So couldn't do it anymore. So all those people had to go, drive a school bus or what. I'm being naughty here, but I mean the point being that those industries have followed the farm industry in consolidating into several monster companies. Mm-hmm. And if you want a ma and pa grocery store, it's practically impossible. It's hard to get hold of the trucking. It's hard to get hold of the farmers because they're all big farmers that are all contracted to somebody else. So, direction. But again, I think the grocers have done what the farmers done. They've all got their own little niches in the market, and they're all it's like the mob. You take this side, you take that side. And you look at Walmart, they're not a growing company anymore.
Mm-hmm. No.
They build solar panels that we pay 2/3 of the cost of. Yep. I mean, they're not going to grow anymore. And that's where the territory all gets carved out. So, again, could this be manipulated? I mean, look at how the prices just in the last year or two have gone up and down and been manipulated. You think that's by accident that's happened?
Absolutely not. And
the coronavirus, what does that have to do with farming? What really spreads out there on a huge,
to the cabbage.
To crisis that we went through. I mean, how do you screw everyone when they're not in a position to fight you on it?
Yeah.
So you've seen milk go up and down in cost. You've seen meat go up and down in cost. You've seen an artificial shortage created in meat, which is nonsense.
Yeah.
We never stopped farming. We never stopped producing. We never stopped trucking. We never stopped anything associated with farming. Mm-hmm. The climate we didn't have an ice age last year.
Right.
So, and you've also seen, and here's another part of this. It's another consequence of the mass producing is the genetics put into animals. Mm-hmm. Because they see the profits and they can create bigger cows to produce more.
Yep.
Chickens are growing bigger breasts. Which, big breasts are good sometimes, but on chickens, it's a little different. But I mean, no, but they're doing it to try to, again, while they talk about our nutrition and so much for the wildlife, the caring of any of that stuff.
And we have no idea what the long-term effects of this are. I mean, we've already seen some of it with things that they have added to our milk, where children are growing taller. There are some more effeminate features that
this is news to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know
okay.
That. I mean, I'll say another thing too is all the garbage put in our food from.
Yes.
If you look at film in the 1950s and see how many 300-pound people you see.
Yeah.
Pretty much nobody. You look at now, and there's a crisis in diabetes in this country, and I think everybody's not an overeater.
No.
So there's obviously things put into our foods that are changing us also. But what is the story? Keep going on that. I didn't mean to interrupt you on that.
Oh, I don't know if I have much more of a story, but just like now you'll see on the milk without HGB or whatever it's called. So
that's making kids
human
grow taller?
growth, HGH, human growth hormone.
Human growth hormones
Yeah.
are in milk.
They were. I think that there's enough pushback against that they've been taken out of it in most milk. Yeah. So.
Unbelievable. Maybe that's why athletes are testing positive for HGH. They're drinking the wrong kind of milk.
Maybe.
So, again, people talking out of both sides of their mouth. But I'm more worried about the death of rural America. I'm more worried about the death of small towns. And I think this is part of that. I think it's part of the push to get us all into a high-rise somewhere with a complete street and an automated car and everything within a half a mile except anything I want. Yeah.
Right.
And, this is another way for us to get pushed there.
Right. Well, I don't know if you are aware of, I know you know a ton about American history, but like world history where like in the Soviet Union, they went after the farmers.
Absolutely. They were the kulaks in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, farmland. The whole reason that they collectivized everything was because farmers were independent.
Yes.
And in communist country, you could have that. You couldn't have a independent people. Right. You had to put everybody on. Everybody had to go back to being a serf.
Right.
To feed the state, you couldn't have private ownership. The 1930s, they actually created one of the worst famines in world history in the early 1930s in the old Soviet Union, in the Ukraine area, southeastern part of the country. It was, but you got to understand too, this was the folly of communism.
Yeah.
To manage every little part of the economy, and nothing could go wrong. Anything that disrupted everybody. So you couldn't produce too much because you'd have to sell it. You couldn't sell it because nobody had any money because they didn't own anything. You couldn't. So it was all okay. We're going to abolish private ownership.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to collectivize everything.
Yes.
And it was you talk about the same thing in China.
Yep.
One of the things about the Great Leap Forward, one of the big things was, and of course, it was all censored and all that. People found out about it 30 years later. Mm-hmm. But it almost wiped out China's rice production and so on. Almost got wiped out by collectivization.
Wow.
Not just millions of people dying, which you can't even put in perspective.
Mm-hmm.
But also just about wiped out to try and take a country that size and redo their entire farming community. And nearly was the death of the nation. So
well, and you see it over and over.
History just repeats itself.
Right. Cambodia, the killing fields. It really was all about, you had slaves that were working in the rice fields harvesting the rice, and they were just useless slaves that were gunned down and killed at will. Now in South Africa and Mozambique, you have farmers that are being terrorized and trying to be forced into giving up their land, and some of them are being killed. And this is this push by the Marxists in South Africa to take that land away from farmers so that there's not private ownership.
You just think in South Africa, we went from getting rid of apartheid not that long ago.
Right.
That was maybe 25, 30 years. I remember apartheid.
I remember it, yeah.
We've gone from that to trying to abolish private land.
Yeah.
Just think about how quick that's happened.
Mm.
But it is part, again, I'm not making this up. You talk about the Great Reset. We talk about Agenda 20. People who try to continue what breeds independence. You take somebody's firm and go. In filling those niches.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'll tell you, once the farmland's destroyed in this country, I mean, it just, and here's the shame of it. The shame of it is we've got great technology in this country. We've come so far since the family farm as far as knowledge of the climate and the soil, and technology has come so far that I question whether any of this is necessary anymore. Whether it's necessary to prop up farms, even smaller ones. Maybe they could be self-sufficient, but they're never going to be able to, and you're never going to find out if there can actually be, the old farmer the way there was 100 years ago. Look, I don't want somebody's land wiped out or a drought coming and destroying something.
Right.
But at the same time, the consequences of all the free money being given away are that we have allowed the big guy to eat the little guy. And here's the thing too. That's also strange. We're talking about the big guy and the little guy. Why does it depend what industry they're in? If oil companies were acting this way, it'd be the leading story on CNN every night.
Right.
If something like that, if the My Pillow guy was doing this to somebody, it would be a leading story. If our family farms are getting destroyed by our own government, when was the last time you even saw a story about family farming on a newscast?
Yeah, I can't tell you.
I have no idea. And I think it's going on in silence. And I'll tell you what, the family farmer is, if anything, incentivized to get out of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame them. I really don't blame them.
Right.
I don't blame them for thinking, farmers saying that to themselves. I'm better off getting out, taking the money while I can, and retiring or whatever, moving to Florida.
Yeah.
Better off just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens then? What happens to all the all the land and all the food and all the animals, and they're just become numbers in somebody. Say what the small farming, big. I know it's just sad. I think it's just sad. I just got an affection for farmers, and I don't know, Jay. It's just now a farmer's going to be turned down. They'll be turned into a complete street.
I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I hate seeing it,
Well, I think the first solution is to quit subsidizing the big guys. That's the first solution. If this were a tax cut for the wealthy, everybody would be going nuts. If it's farm subsidies, then it's, do you honestly think, let me ask the question backwards. Do you think that these wealthy guys would buy all this land and farming and stuff if it wasn't a good financial option for them?
No.
Clearly they're being advised probably to do this, to get into this industry, and so on and so forth. So, if there wasn't money to be got, if there wasn't a good deal, they wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
So, I don't think it's Bill Gates' idea to go buy a bunch of land in Arkansas. I think he has people looking out for his dough.
Right.
And saying, well, here's where we can get money from the government. Here's where you can do your human experiments or whatever you do.
Right.
So, I think it's really more that. I think too. How do I put this? I think it's funny because we sound so conspiratorial. It's like, oh, that can't be happening. When it's like when I first thought of, heard of these groups that meet in secret and blah, blah, blah. It was so easy to spot it and see about, we're the good guys. But I'll tell you, things aren't black and white no more.
No, they're not.
And I don't know who the good guys are.
It's a lot harder to tell, unfortunately. I sit here every day and I think, okay, I think I know, and then they do something to let me down. And, he gave away a little bit more than I would have on that. This is like big time stuff. It's like there are very few people I think I can point to where like they seem to consistently stand where they need to stand.
And how about some journalism in this nation? How about these farm bills that come out of Washington, and how about some honest reporting?
Well,
how about that? I mean, it wasn't easy finding some of these links that we found.
No.
I mean, it's not like they're on the front page of any newspaper anywhere. I mean, you had to go to some alternative sources.
Mm-hmm.
And they might get a token mention somewhere. But, I mean, the idea that Bill Gates is the largest land, that just, why that came out? Because he's getting divorced.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that we know that. We're not entitled to, I don't think, to look up even Bill Gates has the same rights I do when it comes to privacy, and some stuff is public information, some stuff isn't. And so, but to own, I don't even know where you start to fix to own all that land in all those states. I mean, I'm not a big fan of like making it illegal, but when you do it under a bunch of different companies, to me, there's a transparency issue that I think also should be there too. Like, it shouldn't be some tax shelter. It shouldn't be some company under some phantom name. And I think that's part of this as well, because they can take a company, they can bleed the losses off on another one, and purchase land, and for whatever price is offered, they can do that because they can afford a short-term loss.
Okay.
So,
yeah, it's not a level playing field, and
talk about equity.
Yeah.
I mean, how about equity in farming?
Well, there is if you're a minority owner.
Yeah, is
right?
there? I'm not even
there's
sure
really
there's
not.
there either.
There's really not. You might get some government help, but they're undercutting you just the same.
Well, and also too, I'll say one more thing about subsidies. I mean, one of the things I also see is that subsidies, one thing it does is it ruins innovation.
Yes.
It's people do things to get the subsidy. They don't do things that they may do otherwise.
Right.
Let me give you a good example real quick. Why did Henry Ford create the assembly line?
Well, most people would say because it was an easier way to mass produce cars.
Okay, but why did he want to do that?
He said he wanted to put a car in every household in America.
Right, but he couldn't because he couldn't produce them at a price that the average person could afford them.
Mm-hmm.
He had the vision of that, and his vision was 50 years before his time.
Yeah.
Imagine if the government paid 2/3 of the cost of that car. Henry Ford never would have created that because he'd have been like, hey, I don't have to.
Right. Government's
paying for 2/3. Go take the tax credit.
Mm-hmm.
No innovation would have come.
Yep.
We'd still be driving Model Ts. I mean, some things would have changed. I mean, that's kind of BS. But I mean, the whole thing about that was I mean, same things happen with green technology. Why is that not getting better? Because they have no incentive to do better.
Russian Zill, right?
Well, I mean, but quality. Okay, so we'll just keep doing what we're doing. It's having the opposite effect of the intention.
Yeah.
And I think the same principle goes with these family farms. You just I don't know, I'm just sad at it. I'm just sad.
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
It's that time again.
Oh.
Jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing son of a gun. It is that time, Jay, for you to give us the men want to be them, the women love them. Community Solutions once again with the sign-off sermon presents Jason Bradley.
Thank you, Andrew. Our farms are in trouble, which means our rural areas are in trouble, which means our small towns are in trouble. We gotta take stock of what we have, even if we live in the city, if we live in a metro area. If our rural areas go down, our small towns go down, everything comes down. What do we got left? I mean, we're all going to live in Minneapolis where murder rates are up like 80% or whatever it is. No, thank you. I would rather not. So, what are we going to do? Houses and plots of land. Bumper crop of whatever. Kumquats or plums, I don't know. But yet, we need people to do that. We need people to grow groves of fruit trees. We need people to grow vegetables. We need people that are willing to milk cows and to give us our bacon. Oh, what would we do without bacon? It would be a terrible world. We got to have bacon. The point is this. The people who bring us those things, the farmer, I mean, this country was set up so that the farmers could be involved in our government, go serve, and then go back home and farm. And now it's all lawyers, and in Minnesota, I guess, you can be a teacher as well and get into government. But it was really meant for the everyday man, the everyday woman. And that's not what we see in government. It's not what we see in farming. But we've got to hold tight. We cannot let go of what is yet to. It's not beyond our reach, but if that be robbed blind, right? Like, oh, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. That's not a problem until it is a problem. Well, how about we be proactive instead of reactive? How about we go out there and we take care of business and we make the proper sacrifices and do whatever we need to do to make sure that we take care of ours. I don't know what the answer is. It's a big problem, but it's one that we can take on, especially if you live in an area that's more rural, more agricultural. You're able to see all of the wonderful things that our farms get us. The variety of vegetables and fruits, the meats, the dairy, the eggs. And we need to hold on to that. I mean, that is American life right there. That's Americana 101 from under our nose. So what do we do? Well, it's kind of hard. Like I said at the beginning of this little tirade, we can't just go out and buy a plow and start digging up dirt and planting whatever. But we can do our best to we can stop voting for people that come against that way of life. We want people that think about the good of America and the foundational principles that we were organized under. And rather than just thinking about ourselves, that we have others on our minds. And this was the breadbasket of the world. All the world seemed to get their food from America. So what do we do? Well, it starts with you. You didn't see that coming, did you? I only say that like every week. It starts with you. And so we've got to take care. And we've got to control what we can control. And right now, I might just be speaking up. But more likely, there's more to it. run for office, to step into an advisory commission, whatever it is that you feel you can do, now's the time. I mean, there's no that's going to what we remember, and not that society shouldn't move forward. It should, and with innovation and inventions and things like that. But there are certain things of the American experience that need to stay consistent. That we should be kind to other people, that we should be generous, that we should stand for freedom, that we should stand for other people's rights. Those are all bedrocks of the American experience. So what are we going to do? We need to consider what happens if we don't. And then hope that it never comes to that. We are so thankful for you. And we really, really, really want to just say how much we love you. And we are ready to help you in any way we can. Get a hold of us at commsolutionsmn@gmail.com. That's commsolutionsmn@gmail.com, and we will see what we can do to work together and bring about change in this country. We want to be able to help you help Minnesota because we love the state, and we're working our butts off to try and make sure that we do our part. So the rest is all up to you. And we love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work.
Take my life, caught a break between the lines. Don't let me